Alex sat alone at the kitchen table late at night, staring at the clock as it ticked louder with each passing second. The house was silent, but his thoughts were deafening. Emily wasn't home yet. She had texted earlier, saying she was stuck at work again. Third time this week, she claimed. He should have believed her. He always did. But tonight, something felt different. His gaze landed on a folded piece of paper on the counter. Normally, he wouldn't give it a second thought. But tonight, everything seemed to catch his attention. He stood up, walked over, and picked it up. It was a receipt from a high-end restaurant he'd never heard of. 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, and dessert. The date was from last night, the same night Emily had told him she'd eaten takeout at the office. Alex stared at the receipt, his chest tightening. A strange mix of anger and confusion swirled inside him. Why would she lie? Who was she with? He tucked the receipt into his pocket and sat back down, trying to make sense of it. His mind raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. He didn't want to believe what his gut was telling him. Not yet. What would you do if you found a clue that could destroy your trust in someone you love? Stay with me, because this story is just getting started. Don't forget to subscribe to hear how it all unfolds. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke Alex's thoughts. It was 11:47 p.m. He heard the familiar jingling of Emily's keys before the door opened, and she walked in, smiling faintly. "You're still awake?" she asked, setting her purse down. "Couldn't sleep," Alex replied, keeping his voice steady. "How was work?" She hesitated for a split second before answering. "Busy," she said with a shrug, kicking off her shoes. "Meetings all day." Her tone was light, her face calm, but something about her answer didn't sit right. Alex studied her, trying to pick up on anything that felt out of place. She looked tired, but not in the way she usually did. She looked distracted. "Well, don't stay up too late," she said as she headed upstairs. Alex stayed at the table, staring at the spot where she had stood. His thoughts swirled as he replayed her words, her expressions, and the receipt burning a hole in his pocket. He didn't confront her, not yet. He needed more than a scrap of paper before he could accuse her of something this serious. But deep down, he knew the truth was coming, and the cracks in their life were already starting to show. Emily thought the night had ended like any other. But for Alex, it was just the beginning. The next morning, Alex woke up with the weight of the previous night still heavy on his mind. Emily moved around the house as if nothing was wrong, humming softly as she poured herself a cup of coffee. She kissed him on the cheek before heading out the door, her smile as warm as ever. "I'll see you tonight," she said brightly, her bag slung over her shoulder. The door shut behind her, leaving Alex in the silence once more. He pulled the receipt from his pocket and placed it on the table, staring at it. It wasn't just a piece of paper anymore. It was a seed of doubt, and it had taken root deep inside him. He couldn't shake the questions swirling in his mind. Why had she lied? Who was she with? Alex grabbed his laptop and typed the restaurant's name into the search bar. Pictures of elegant dishes and glowing reviews filled the screen. The place wasn't just any restaurant. It was romantic, intimate, the kind of place meant for couples. His jaw tightened. Emily had gone there while claiming to eat takeout at the office. Later that day, he tried to distract himself with work, but it was impossible. The thought of Emily's lie lingered, gnawing at him. By lunch, he couldn't take it anymore. He needed answers, and he needed help. Alex picked up his phone and searched for a private investigator. After a few rings, a man named William answered. His voice was calm and professional. "How can I help you?" "I think my wife is cheating on me," Alex said, his voice trembling despite his effort to sound composed. He explained everything. The late nights, the strange behavior, the receipt. William listened without interrupting. "You've got enough to be suspicious," William said finally. "If there's something going on, I'll find it. Give me a few days." Alex hung up, feeling a strange mix of guilt and relief. He hated the idea of spying on Emily, but he hated not knowing the truth even more. What would you do if you found yourself questioning everything you thought you knew? Stay with me, because the truth is closer than Alex realizes, and it's going to change everything. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. That evening, Emily came home like usual, smiling as she walked through the door. She hugged Alex, her phone clutched tightly in her other hand. Normally, she'd toss it on the counter without a second thought, but now, she kept it close, almost protective. "How was your day?" Alex asked, forcing himself to sound casual. "Busy," she replied, her voice light. "Meetings all day." "You?" "Same old," Alex said with a shrug. He glanced at her phone, then back at her. "You've been on your phone a lot lately." Emily laughed nervously. "Just work emails." "Nothing exciting." Alex nodded, pretending to accept her answer, but inside, his doubts grew. He noticed how she kept her phone face down on the counter, a habit she never had before. He noticed how she avoided his gaze when she talked. Every little thing felt like another crack in their life, another sign that something wasn't right. Late that night, long after Emily had gone to bed, Alex lay awake, staring at the faint glow of her phone on the nightstand. His heart pounded as he debated whether to reach for it. It wasn't like him to invade her privacy, but the need for answers was overwhelming. He hesitated for what felt like an eternity before finally reaching for the phone. As he lifted it, a notification lit up the screen. It was a message from someone named Mark. The words made Alex's blood run cold. "I can't stop thinking about last night." Alex put the phone down, his hands trembling. His worst fear had taken shape, but he couldn't confront her. Not yet. He needed more. He needed to see the full picture before he made his move. Emily thought she had hidden her secret well, but Alex was just getting started. Stick around. What he finds next will leave you speechless. The next morning, Alex went through the motions of his routine, but his mind was elsewhere. The message from Mark replayed in his head, each word cutting deeper than the last. Emily kissed him goodbye as usual, her demeanor calm and unsuspecting. "I'll be late again tonight," she said, smiling. "Another meeting?" Alex nodded, forcing a smile. "No problem. Take care." As soon as she left, he called William, the private investigator. "I need you to dig deeper," Alex said, his voice firm. "Her phone confirmed what I suspected. There's someone named Mark. I need to know who he is and everything about him." William didn't hesitate. "Consider it done. I'll be in touch." The hours dragged on, and Alex found himself staring at the clock, waiting for William's call. Finally, in the late afternoon, his phone buzzed. William's voice was steady but carried a weight that made Alex's stomach turn. "I have everything," William said. "Can you meet me?" They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe. Alex arrived early, his nerves frayed, his thoughts racing. When William walked in, he was holding a slim folder. He sat down, sliding it across the table without a word. Alex opened it slowly, his heart pounding. Inside were photos of Emily and Mark together. One showed them laughing over wine at the same restaurant from the receipt. Another showed them walking arm in arm in a parking lot. A third showed them sharing a quiet embrace near her car. "That's him," William said. "Mark. He's a co-worker. They've been meeting after work for months. Romantic dinners, private meetups, you name it." Alex's grip tightened on the folder as he flipped through the evidence. Every photo, every timestamp confirmed what he already knew but didn't want to believe. Emily wasn't just lying. She was living a double life. "What else?" Alex asked, his voice low. William hesitated for a moment before continuing. "Mark has a reputation. He's known for this kind of thing. There's a history of similar affairs, mostly with married women. He's careful, but not careful enough." Alex's jaw clenched as he stared at the last photo. It was the two of them standing outside Emily's car, her hand on his chest, her head tilted toward his. They looked like they were in love, a thought that made Alex's stomach churn. "What do you want to do with this?" William asked. Alex closed the folder and looked up, his eyes cold and determined. "I'm going to make sure they both regret it." "If you found this folder, what would you do?" Alex now had the proof, and his plan was just beginning. Subscribe now, because the revenge he's about to unleash will leave you stunned. That evening, Alex went home and greeted Emily like nothing was wrong. She acted as though everything was fine, laughing at a joke he made during dinner, scrolling through her phone without a care in the world. But Alex wasn't the same. Behind his calm exterior, his mind was calculating every detail of what was to come. When she wasn't looking, Alex sent a quick message to William. "Prepare what we discussed."
It's time.
Emily thought she was safe, but the walls were closing in. What Alex had planned next would expose everything she tried to hide. Stick around. Things are about to get intense. The next day, Alex put the final steps of his plan into motion. He woke up early, careful not to wake Emily, and sent a few texts. By the time she was downstairs for breakfast, Alex had a calm smile on his face. "You're free tonight, right?" he asked as he poured himself a cup of coffee. Emily hesitated, her eyes flickering with the kind of nervousness he had become all too familiar with. "I think so. Why?" "I booked us dinner," he said casually, taking a sip. "It's been a while since we've had a night out, just the two of us." Emily froze for a moment, but she quickly covered it with a smile. "That sounds great," she said, her voice a little too bright. "Where?" "Just a nice little spot downtown," Alex replied, keeping the details vague. "Something special." As Emily got ready for work, Alex sent another message. This one wasn't to Emily, but to Mark, using an anonymous number. The message was simple. "Emily will be at restaurant name tonight at 7. Come if you want to see her." By the time Emily left the house, Alex's trap was set. The stage was ready, and all he had to do now was wait. What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you? Alex's plan is in motion, and the fallout will be unforgettable. Subscribe now to see how it all unfolds. That evening, Emily was unusually quiet as Alex drove them to the restaurant. She glanced at her phone frequently, her fingers tapping nervously on the screen. Alex noticed, but he said nothing. He wanted her to feel the tension, to sense that something was off. When they arrived, the restaurant was dimly lit and intimate, just as Alex had planned. The host led them to a private table near the back. Emily looked around, her gaze darting toward the entrance as though she was expecting someone. Alex pretended not to notice. They ordered their meals, and Alex kept the conversation light, asking about her day and pretending to listen. Emily's responses were short, distracted. She glanced at the entrance again, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Then, right on cue, Mark walked in. Emily's face went pale as she saw him. She glanced at Alex, who simply smiled and gestured for Mark to join them. "Mark," Alex called out, waving. "Glad you could make it. We were just about to order dessert." Mark hesitated for a moment, but Alex's tone left him no room to back out. He approached the table slowly, his face a mixture of confusion and unease. He pulled out a chair and sat down, glancing nervously between Alex and Emily. "What's going on here?" Mark asked, his voice low. Alex leaned back in his chair, his smile never wavering. "Oh, nothing much. Just thought it would be nice for the three of us to share a meal. After all, you two seem to be spending so much time together these days." Emily opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her hands trembled as she clutched the edge of the table. Mark's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. A waiter arrived, placing 3 plates of dessert on the table. Each plate was covered with a silver lid, and Alex's smile widened as the lids were lifted. Emily's dessert was a small, elegant cake with a folded note perched on top. Mark's plate held the same dessert, but instead of a note, it was topped with a joker card, sticking out like a taunt. "What's this?" Mark asked, his voice sharp. "Go ahead," Alex said calmly, gesturing toward the desserts. "Read it." Emily's hands shook as she picked up the note. She unfolded it slowly, her eyes scanning the words. The color drained from her face as she read. "Enjoy this sweetness. It's the last lie you'll ever savor." Mark stared at the joker card, his expression turning to anger. "What the hell is this?" Alex leaned forward, his tone icy. "That's exactly what you are, Mark, a joker. Someone who thinks they can play games and always come out on top. But tonight, the game ends." Emily's voice cracked as she finally spoke. "Alex, please, let me explain." "Oh, you'll explain," Alex interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "But not to me. You'll explain to everyone who got the email I just sent. The one with all the pictures, messages, and proof of your little affair." Emily gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Mark's phone buzzed on the table, and he picked it up, his face twisting in shock as he read the message. "Send it to a few people you might know," Alex continued. "Your boss, your coworkers, even your wife. Mark, I thought they deserved to know who you really are. Mark stood abruptly, his face red with anger. You think you've won? He spat. You don't know who you're messing with. Alex chuckled, leaning back in his chair. Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. And trust me, Mark, you're not as smart as you think you are. Emily broke down in tears, her sobs echoing in the restaurant. Other diners had begun to notice, their whispers filling the air as they watched the drama unfold. Alex stood, tossing his napkin onto the table. Enjoy your desserts, he said, his voice cold. You'll need the energy for what's coming next. He walked out of the restaurant, leaving Emily and Mark to face the chaos he had unleashed. What would you do in Alex's shoes? Would you stop here, or would you go even further? Subscribe now because the final consequences are about to hit, and you won't believe what happens next. Alex walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air, his heart pounding but his mind clear. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of control. He had spent so long doubting himself, questioning what he'd done wrong. But tonight wasn't about him. It was about holding Emily and Mark accountable for what they had done. He got into his car and sat for a moment, staring at the steering wheel. He didn't feel victorious, nor did he feel regret. It was something in between, a quiet realization that the life he thought he had built was gone, shattered by their lies. But now, he had the chance to start over. The fallout began almost immediately. Emily's phone buzzed relentlessly with messages. Friends, family, and even coworkers began reaching out after receiving Alex's email. The evidence was undeniable. Photos, timestamps, and even the message from Mark that Alex had screenshotted. All of it was now public knowledge. At home, Emily tried calling Alex over and over again, leaving tearful voicemails. Alex, please. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking. I can fix this. We can fix this. But Alex didn't answer. He didn't need to hear her excuses. Mark didn't escape the storm either. By the time he got home that night, his wife was already gone. She had packed her things and left a note on the kitchen counter that read, "You made your choice. Now live with it." At work, Mark's reputation crumbled. Word of the affair spread quickly, and the forwarded email made its way to his boss. Within days, Mark was placed under review, and whispers of financial discrepancies in his department began to surface. His life was unraveling faster than he could control. Meanwhile, Alex was taking his first steps toward a new beginning. He returned to their home briefly, not to reconcile, but to clear out Emily's belongings. He packed up her clothes, photos, and every trace of their shared life into boxes. It wasn't out of spite. It was about letting go. Each item he removed felt like a weight lifted off his shoulders. The house, once filled with memories of love and laughter, now felt empty, but it was a kind of emptiness he welcomed. For Alex, it was a blank slate, a chance to rebuild. Late one evening, Alex received an unexpected email from William, the private investigator. It was short and to the point. Just thought you'd like to know. Mark's being investigated at work for fraud. Turns out, he was cheating in more ways than one. Alex smirked as he read it. Karma had a funny way of working itself out. Months later, Alex moved into a new apartment, leaving behind the house and the memories that came with it. Standing on the balcony, he looked out at the city skyline, a glass of wine in hand. The scars of betrayal were still there, but they no longer defined him. He was stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to create a life he deserved. As he set the glass down and turned off the lights, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from an old friend he hadn't spoken to in years, inviting him to dinner. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt a glimmer of excitement. The future was uncertain, but it was his to shape. Sometimes losing everything isn't the end. It's the beginning of something better. Justice had been served, and Alex was ready to move forward. Would you be able to move forward like Alex did? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, where betrayal meets justice and second chances are earned. The story concluded with Alex finally finding peace, but the ripples of his actions continued to spread. Emily struggled to piece together her life after the truth came out. Her attempts to reach Alex remained unanswered. Friends distanced themselves, and her once bright career dimmed as whispers about her unprofessional behavior circulated at work. Her once secure life had crumbled under the weight of her choices. Mark faced even harsher consequences. The investigation into his workplace fraud uncovered years of deceit, leading to his dismissal and legal troubles. His wife filed for divorce, cutting all ties with him, leaving Mark isolated and disgraced. His arrogance had cost him everything, and there was no one left to blame but himself. Meanwhile, Alex thrived. He reconnected with old friends and began focusing on his passions, things he had put aside during his marriage. He started running again, a hobby he had once loved but abandoned as his life became consumed by his relationship. Each step felt like a reclaiming of his identity, a piece of himself restored. One day, while unpacking a box in his new apartment, Alex stumbled across an old photo of himself. It was taken years ago, long before he met Emily. In it, he looked happy, carefree, a version of himself he hadn't seen in years. He stared at it for a moment, smiling. He wasn't that person anymore, but maybe that was okay. He had grown, and he was stronger now. The journey hadn't been easy, but Alex realized something important. Life wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about what you did after. Betrayal had broken him, but it also gave him the chance to rebuild, to create something better. In the weeks that followed, Alex started meeting new people and embracing the idea of a fresh start. He wasn't in a rush. He had learned the value of patience, of waiting for things that truly mattered. For now, he was content to focus on himself, enjoying the freedom of a life no longer weighed down by deceit. Justice had been served, and Alex had emerged stronger. His story was one of betrayal and revenge, but it was also about resilience and the power of moving forward. What did you think of Alex's journey? Could you handle betrayal the way he did? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories where truth prevails and second chances shine brighter than ever. The story truly ended with Alex embracing a new chapter of his life, but the lessons from his journey remained as clear as ever. While Emily and Mark dealt with the fallout of their choices, Alex found something far more valuable: his peace and freedom. For Emily, life became a daily struggle. The once confident woman who thought she could juggle lies and love now faced isolation. Her friends no longer returned her calls, and her family's disappointment loomed over her like a shadow. She had betrayed not just Alex, but herself, and there was no one doing the damage. Every attempt she made to fix her life felt hollow because the foundation of trust she had destroyed could never be rebuilt. Mark, on the other hand, found himself spiraling further. His legal troubles from the fraud investigation were only the beginning. With no job, no family, and no reputation, he realized too late how his reckless behavior had cost him everything. He tried reaching out to Emily, but even she had grown distant, too consumed by her own misery to offer him any support. The man who once played games with everyone else's lives now had no one left to play with. As for Alex, he didn't look back. His new apartment became a sanctuary, a place where he rediscovered who he was. He filled his space with things that brought him joy: art, books, and memories he created on his own. Each day felt lighter, freer, as he let go of the pain Emily and Mark had caused. One evening, while out for a run, Alex paused at a park bench to catch his breath. He watched a group of kids playing nearby, their laughter filling the air. For the first time in months, he felt something stir inside him: hope. Life wasn't perfect, but it was his, and that was enough. He thought back to the night he confronted Emily and Mark, how their faces had crumbled under the weight of their lies. He didn't feel anger anymore. He didn't even feel pity. What they did was on them, and what he chose to do next was on him. As he sat there, his phone buzzed. It was a text from the old college friend who had reached out earlier, asking if he was free to catch up over coffee. Alex smiled, replying with a simple yes. Sometimes, the hardest part of life isn't the betrayal itself. It's finding the strength to move forward. Alex had found that strength, and it was leading him toward a brighter, better future. Would you find the strength to rebuild after such betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories where justice is served, lessons are learned, and hope always finds a way to shine through.